I'm joined now by Leroy Chiao. He's a former NASA astronaut and International Space Station commander. I guess, Leroy, you're probably not going to have an umbrella out or anything like that. You're not worried about getting hit by any of this stuff, right?
No, not too worried about it. In fact, the biggest likelihood is that the entire spacecraft, which is not that big, is going to all burn up in the atmosphere upon entry. It's a lot smaller than Skylab was, and so even if any small pieces survive, most of the Earth is covered by ocean, so chances are it'll hit without any damage somewhere in the oceans.
We were just talking about the candidates training in China, and I got to ask you about your own training. I'm sure any time they start talking about astronaut training, probably rekindle some memories for you. But your training was unique, at least for your last mission, if I recall. Didn't you have to learn Russian, and you spent time in Russia and here in the States as well? I mean, you trained for a long time for that last mission, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. When you train for your first space station mission, if you're going to go live and work aboard the station, it took 3.5 years, and half of that time was spent in Star City outside of Moscow, and that's because Russia is the other major partner of the ISS program. I had to learn Russian, and so we had to learn both the Russian systems and the American systems, go through Soyuz training because we flew up and down on a Russian spacecraft and a rocket, and go through all their survival training and things like that I just heard in the broadcast that the newer Chinese astronauts are going through as well.
Leroy, it was an exciting time, I'm sure, for you on all the missions that you went on. But are we looking at a new golden age of space exploration? I mean, we just had a story on from Harry Horton not too long ago about how the U.S. is thinking about going to the moon. Of course, we've talked a lot on this broadcast about China's efforts to go to the moon. Do you see it as an exciting time for space exploration?
I think it is an exciting time for many reasons. Over the last several years, certainly here at NASA, things have slowed down a bit ever since we retired the space shuttle in 2011. Somehow we never quite got things going. We've made forward progress in building Orion, or starting to build Orion and the new rockets. But the exciting wild card in the U.S. are the commercial efforts. Elon Musk's SpaceX, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin. Now we have these visionary entrepreneurs who are using resources and profits from their companies to go ahead and actually fund exploration. So it's a very exciting time, sets up the possibility of true government commercial cooperation for exploration. Also, as you pointed out, China has a very ambitious plan. They plan to build and operate their own space station in the next few years. They have publicly stated that they intend to send Chinese astronauts to the moon. And with the U.S. policy shifting back towards the moon, I think this sets up an exciting possibility of collaboration between China and the U.S. and our partners to go explore together. And to me, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, that'd be great to see. I heard Scott Kelly speak about his year in space. He talked about having dinner with his family when he was back on Earth and clutching the utensils, because when they're in space, if you lose your grip or something like that, it just takes off on you. I want to ask you, what was the toughest part for you, adjusting from one to the other, from space to Earth, or vice versa?
Right, so there is an adaptation period going both ways. Most of the changes are, there are some of the changes that Scott described, which are kind of funny. Most of your changes are biomedical. That is, you have dizziness that you have to adapt to going both ways. You have fluid shifts. You carry about 2 liters less water in your body when you're in space. And so there are more subtle things that happen, and serious things that can happen to you medically as well. And so going up and coming back, it does take a readaptation period. After a long duration flight, typically it takes several weeks to kind of feel like you're back to normal again. And so, some of the things that are funny, you do tend to, maybe you let go of something expecting it to float, and hopefully it's just a pen and not a cup of coffee.
We'll leave it there. Leroy Chiao, leaving us with a laugh at the end. Thanks so much for joining us from Houston.